A year like no other. That's an apt description for education during the 2020 pandemic year, as COVID-19 upended schooling for all students from pre-K through college. What's happening across California mimics what students and families are experiencing across the country. Research shows that the pandemic is costing students academically, especially low-income Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous students. What began in March as an emergency switch from in-person classes to virtual learning lingered throughout the fall, and for many will continue through the spring semester of 2021. Carolyn Bims Payne and Sarah Courtney live at opposite ends of California. In Oakland, Bims Payne's sons, Michael, a 7th grader, and Jalen, a 4th grader, learn at home via Zoom classes, while Sarah Courtney's son, Colton, attends a hybrid 4th grade in San Bernardino County. He's in school 2 days a week and at home 3 days a week, attending Zoom classes.
Spring, it was like, whoa, everyone was just lost. Like we were scrambling, literally. I'm a social worker with Alameda County, so I have a caseload I'm managing. I have phone calls, I have Zoom meetings on top of being mom, lunch lady, referee, tutor, and all of these other things. So managing all of that can be quite overwhelming.
Back in March, it was kind of just super sudden and everything shut down. We came and got their Chromebooks, packets, books, whatever was needed for school to finish out the year.
It was a real pain because I couldn't get to see my friends at all.
Colton had to be like, this is how we do it in class. And he'd show me and click through everything, and then I would be like, oh, okay, I get it now. So my kid kind of taught me how to use Google Classroom.
Now we have a more of a robust system where this is the schedule, the teachers are responsible for this. Library structure will be this amount of time.
For the most part, we're making it work. I literally sit and play school teacher and make sure that he does what he needs to do and that the little one stays off of his Zoom and doesn't distract the other kids.
Across California, some students are attending so-called hybrid classes, where they split their time between home and classroom, as teachers too are doing their jobs in new ways. Nestled in a desert valley near the San Bernardino Mountains, Lucerne Valley Elementary was one of the first schools in California to get a waiver, allowing elementary schools in counties on the state's COVID-19 watch list to reopen if they meet a strict set of criteria.
Right now, teachers are building the plane as we're flying it. No one's ever experienced this before. We've had to come up with a lot all by ourselves. I have a friend who started watching teaching videos on TikTok, and then she'll send them. She's like, look at this great idea. So really, it's just been a community of teachers helping each other.
There is a learning loss. With everything going on, that's to be expected. Some of the stuff was not even learned in 3rd grade. So you could just imagine you're giving this kid this assessment on a computer and you're like, okay, so you have to do this to test your knowledge, and some of the material hasn't even been learned.
Every day I have a 30 minutes of intervention just to wrap up the things that they didn't touch in 3rd grade or they didn't master in 3rd grade.
I feel like I'm learning. We do as much work as we do when we're in actual school, and we get a lot of help.
I feel like we're getting a lot of work done, but I feel like it's better in the classroom. Distance learning, it's only 2 hours on Zoom, and a regular classroom, it's 6 hours.
He would rather sleep in, do it on his own time, and with the schedule that she provides during the week, he can rearrange things to how he sees fit. So we start off with PE in the morning. As soon as he wakes up, he gets up and he rides his dirt bike for an hour. And then he comes in, takes a shower, gets ready, and does the rest of his school day.
Each one of them have a whiteboard, and it's your daily schedule. So on Wednesdays, we do our check-in and say, okay, so what's not working at this moment? And what can we actually reconfigure to kind of move forward with the rest of the week?
Go ahead, Michael.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest
When they have the hybrid portion, when they come back to school, they're here all day long doing assignments that correlate with what they did on the internet.
We only have 6 kids in the class. It's not that much, and we can do a lot more schoolwork.
We're able to get so much done and so effectively and efficiently. And by the time we're done, I'm like, we still have 15 minutes left. This would not happen if I had 24 kids in here.
I have some neighbors whose children are in private school, and you kind of really get to see the difference in private education versus public education, and how immediately when COVID took place and the schools were closed down, I mean, the private school students were given laptops, they were given live instruction. So it was like they never missed a beat, versus public education where we don't know what the heck is going on.
We have kids who aren't able to come to school, and these kids, some of them, it's where they get their love from, it's where they get food, it's where they get structure, and it's a big deal for those kids to not be able to be here.
You have children who do not have internet, and so you hear about this digital divide and how prominent it is. And I don't know if there is going to be a solution. I know they're passing out hotspots now, but you really get to see the difference in the education systems.
I hope that we'll be able to make it so that having internet is now a necessity, just like water and sewage. These kids have to have access to the outside world, and the only way we can get that done is through the internet and having reliable computers for them.
Another parent friend told me that teacher was saying, you have to turn on your camera. And so my concern was, well, how do we know what the household looks like? How do you know that child feels comfortable? We don't know their situation, we don't know their predicament. And so while I think that's great, a good gesture, it's also, we have to be sensitive to what's going on in the home. There's only so much you can do with building community via Zoom. When you have, preteens who are quiet, you ask them a question, they answer, but as far as being engaged, it's like, okay, I'm reserved.
When I'm in class, it's kind of harder to focus. I'm an inside person anyway.
When we're talking about social distancing, we have to understand that these are children. So expecting them to keep 6 feet apart, to wipe your table, to use hand sanitizer each time that you're in movement, that's kind of ridiculous, and it's basically putting them more at risk. I'm very fortunate where I can work from home, and I know a lot of parents aren't, but for me, I don't feel comfortable sending them back to school.
I would love for the world to go back to normal, but I highly doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. I personally need my child to interact with other kids other than me.
So some of them will probably be back in the spring if life returns to a more normal state. But I do think some of them are just enjoying not having to go to school. If we're being honest, yeah.
I know in seeing what the district can provide, the minimum, which is not good enough. As a parent, it's my job to make sure that he isn't behind, because I do expect my son to go to college, well, both of them.
Students from one end of California to the other struggle academically and are challenged by technology that has evolved into distance learning fatigue. Experts feel the loss could deny these students the education they need to succeed. And for those with limited English skills or special needs children, the challenges are even more daunting. Despite it all, the families are determined to keep going so children can salvage the school year.
Screw COVID, I'm done. We want the kids to go back to school. We want them to go back to socializing with their friends. We want them to go back to their teachers.
I have a total of 6 kids in the house right now at this point in time. And pretty much every day is just filled with Zoom classes and homework and behavioral therapy. Most everything is done online right now at this point, especially for my sons, who are my 2 autistic children. They do everything distance learning.
Yeah. Do you want to take your coat off, buddy? Yeah.
What's up, guys? It's your boy KKT, and today we finna be doing, I don't know, but let's go and look around. I mean, I was kind of mad and frustrated because I wanted to get in class, but it wouldn't let me in.
I would blame it on distance learning, but I do think that the school district has to take accountability for the fact that you've been through this a few times, right? So we started off in the March, and then we went into the summer program, and now we're in this kind of like third phase of it.
This is my room and I like it so much.
It's just been a hard transition as a parent because you're trying to accommodate your child's learning so nothing falls back in their education or their development through a pandemic, through presidential elections too. So it's just a cluster of a lot of things, and from the beginning of August to now, I could say it has gone a little bit more of a flow. I'm just hopeful that things continue to fall in place so that I don't have to pull Adeline from her education.
So now everything changed. So it affected me in so many ways. Sometimes the teachers are calling me, you know, Juan Manuel is not in class. Juan Manuel is missing this period. Juan Manuel is missing this work.
I'm having a rough time and we are not learning nothing. Like, we're not learning nothing. I feel like most kids are not paying attention. Like, we're not paying attention. Like, we're playing video games or something else like that on our phones.
And for the second grade, the same thing. He's one week with me and the other week with his dad. So the week that he stays here, he works more. He attends almost all the meetings, the reading program that he has for ELD and everything. But the week that he's with his dad, he's missed like half.
You know, I'm still trying to get some clarity around his report card and stuff because I'm concerned about that. It's possible that I could have went to the school earlier, but then, you know, then that would have impacted my work. Every time I go to school, I'm taking a day off from work, and so how I try to maneuver, you know, with that.
What I told the teachers is, you're gonna do the best that you can, but it's also on the parents to continue to implement what is required so our child continue to have that support at home. Adeline's father and I, we are co-parents to Adeline, positive. One of my biggest fears is if something were to change on her dad's side of the family, would I have to make the choice of my daughter not doing school?
You know, it's my son's education, and I just really want him to be able to thrive.
I know that their reading and writing and their math probably isn't where it should be, because where they left off at half a year, they didn't get the rest of that year.
I'm their mom, okay? So right now I get to be mom, teacher, judge, executioner, and it doesn't really work out that well. They go to school and their teacher says, okay, you know, it's art time, we're gonna sit at the table and do finger paints. And they're totally happy about it, and they're totally willing to sit down and follow the instructions and do their work. They don't want to do that for me. I'm their mom, so they're like, no, you know, like throwing papers across the table, and I'm like, well, it makes me feel defeated.
I don't have time for me. Sometimes I feel sad, but I have to do first what I have to do. I don't want to go outside. I don't feel like ready to go anywhere.
I had to seek therapy through this pandemic. And it was a hard choice to do because being Hispanic, you don't do therapy. You just deal with it on your own. But being a social worker and being more aware, I felt like it was the right, healthy step for me to go. I got to make sure I'm okay before I could make sure anybody's okay.
Because I get stressed out easily.
What stresses you out?
School and not going out, not being able to come outside and interact with my friends.
He needs to be always playing sports or doing something. So now he's just at home because we don't have too much outside activities.
With COVID, our worldwide pandemic, this generation that's experienced it from 4-year-olds in pre-K to high schoolers, they're really going to be impacted in their mental health. If you're not 100% there mentally, how are you going to be able to be 100% of a student?
I'm not going to let my kids sit at home all day and do absolutely nothing for months. 6th grade, it could literally pass you by, you know, and you'll find yourself in high school trying to figure out, you know, what's going on as a teenager.
What are we gonna do, live in our houses for the rest of our lives? Not go anywhere, do anything, see anybody? Be separated by plexiglass and masks? That's not how I want my kids to live, and I don't want them to fear everybody, to be afraid.
Why can't you go to class?
And outside?
No, inside. Why can't you go to the classroom?
Yeah, why won't they let you go into the classroom?
Because of the coronavirus.
Coronavirus, huh? And what happens if you go to school and there's still the coronavirus?
Get sick and die.
That could happen, yes. So unfortunately, my mother passed away with COVID, and Adeline was very close to her grandmother, Adela. And I know that seems extreme, but that's the reality.
I just miss talking to people other than my family.
I mean, a 7-hour road trip is one thing, but being with them for months on end gets just really...
I don't know, I just like school when you actually went to the school better. I just had more fun there.
We do not know when everyone's going to get their vaccine and when we're going to go back.
For parents, it's a challenge juggling multiple roles while working their own jobs, as families endure months of distance learning and isolation. A new dog, an afternoon of rollerblading around the neighborhood, and old-fashioned board games around the kitchen table are bright spots to help cope and survive this most challenging of school years.
We kind of going this pandemic fatigue. What can we do now to make it more fun for staying home, you know? It's like I'm running out of idea.
Before, whatever, they have more to share, but now they like less to share because they don't even interact with anyone. And then they just tune to, you know, do whatever they like to do after school, which is mostly, you know, playing game on the computer or watching YouTube or TikTok.
We're trying to pull them out and get them to do some other things.
Like Friday night, we usually want them to play board game, like get off the computer, you know, do more of the physical board game together, either playing card, play anything, or watch movie.
Because of where we live, we only have 3 other houses, and there's really no one in their age group. They are, by virtue of the military, they're kind of used to just being our little insular group.
We've gone from saying like 3 weeks to 3 months to just now almost a year, I think.
I caved and gave the approval for a COVID puppy. The COVID puppy has been, I was very much a skeptic, and now, of course, she's mine. She's all mine. I would say that that's been a bright spot that I didn't see coming. I really looked at it like, oh my gosh, one more thing to take care of, and she really has been a lovely distraction. And even Charlie is, you know, wants to be more involved. He's like, I will pick up the, you know, the poo. So.
I miss swimming as well. I haven't swam in a little while. I'm not used to not socializing to people because I'm by myself, like in my room most of the time during school.
My teacher put us in breakout rooms for this project, and I met some friends there. This is kind of a harder way to do it, I guess, because you don't really know their personality or anything other than what they say in class.
You hear from her, right? She like to talk to friends and stuff, but if she keep on doing that and no one really engage back with her on the conversation, pretty soon she just feel like, you know, I'm crazy, you know, kind of doing it on her own, right?
We went from don't have too much screen time for your children, and all of a sudden flip a switch and, oh no, there's no worries. This is the way we're gonna do things. For my son, it is not having any time that isn't fully on task. And so they've worked to try to have some social time built in, but even that is very inauthentic. Like there's no like little interactions that aren't kind of observed by many.
If I was asked a couple of months ago, I would say, oh, definitely go back. But now it's kind of become more of like I'm okay where I'm at right now, and I'm generally pleased with where I'm at. I mean, I know it's hard on my mom having to deal with us, but I mean, you get used to it.
With California's public college and universities virtually closed to in-person classes, students struggled to make up for lost jobs and income and the loss of college life. It was especially daunting for freshmen who normally face a tough adjustment making the step away from families and into college. The pandemic year was very different, causing many more students to drop away and put off enrolling. That burden appeared especially obvious for Latino and Black high school graduates from low-income schools. Maria's family emigrated to Northern California from Mexico just so she could have a future. But instead of being a student at UC Davis, Maria is helping to support her family with money she earns from babysitting and cat sitting. As an undocumented person, her options are limited.
Being an immigrant family, we've just always found ourselves in tough situations at some point. And we've always found our way out, one way or another. I'm the first one to graduate from high school. Actually, from my family, I'm the youngest of 4. And I'm also the first to go to college. Being an undocumented student, there are definitely limited resources out there in regards to aid. So I knew that my search was pretty much limited to California, and just 1, to be safe, and 2, to be close to my family if anything happens.
Edward was on track last March to attend UC Riverside with the help of financial aid and a scholarship. He took on a job to help his family, but soon realized it just wasn't enough. With his father hospitalized with COVID-19, he knows he has no choice but to keep working if he wants to fulfill his college dream of getting a dual degree in business and film production.
I've already paid for dorming in January, so I really hope I get to be there, just because it's very difficult being in a home environment and doing school. Worst case scenario, it gets canceled, and hopefully they refund me my money.
In March, Jesus was on a path to attend Cal State Northridge to become a civil engineer. But when COVID-19 cut into his family's work hours, he took on more work and weekend gigs in a regional Mexican band to pay the bills.
Throughout this whole time, everything was going on. I was really excited for college, Cal State Northridge, and the valley up there, Northridge. That was the one I chose to go to. I wanted to be in the engineering program.
Now, instead of a 4-year university, he's enrolled in the electrician program at Long Beach City College.
But then the pandemic hit, and we had an unforeseen economic expense that it pushed us to using the money that we had saved up for my tuition to cover that expense. What we did was, I couldn't afford college anymore. So then I had to defer to the spring because I was I'm just gonna spend the next few months working, making sure that I save up again.
Yeah, I got back from CSUN and they were asking for my transcript. I didn't pass the class and I had to redo that class all over again, on top of all the other classes I was taking my senior year. And I was advised to this a month before school ended. It was stressful because my dad he wasn't working anymore. I was thinking about, damn, my dad's not working. It's just me working. So in my head was how are we gonna do this?
Right when quarantine hit, my mom lost her job. I started working to help her pay her bills because my parents separate the bills. But I also did it for myself because I told myself my parents are not gonna be responsible for me at all for college. That's my hustle, that's my grind. So I started working at the end of May, full-time.
I joined NGS when I was in 8th grade, I want to say. It's been a while. And the program encourages the students to take summer classes at our local community college, which is College of Marin. And actually one of those classes that I took, which was the history of Latinas in the U.S., is the reason why I decided to major in Chicano studies. I've always had to defend my Latinx self. I've always had to defend my undocumented self, my Chicanx self. In this classroom, I was being represented, and in this classroom, we were talking about my ancestors and my roots, and I definitely didn't recognize how much that was missing in my life. Every kid deserves to feel empowered when they're learning about history, and not just when it comes to crime statistics or immigration. They deserve to see themselves as the heroes of the story.
There's stereotypes that I've heard that, the kids are gonna be just like the parents. They're just gonna work in a regular job, get paid minimum wage, and just stay there. My sister, she's in college, she's in Cal State LA, and she graduated. I won't be the second one to graduate. I wanna make my parents proud. I want to prove that just because my parents are immigrants, like, and stuff like that, doesn't mean I can do something about my life.
When I was deciding to go to university, and definitely like race was like a big thing like in the back of my head. When I was going to Riverside, I definitely had in mind like this is a place where, not where I belong, because you can belong anywhere, but it's a place where I would feel comfortable, at least for my undergrad. And I know Riverside has a lot of programs specifically in like supporting race, supporting Black Lives Matter, things of that matter. So that's something definitely I want to get involved in.
I didn't want my freshman year of college to be like, just go online and do work. To me, it was like, how is that possible? How am I supposed to learn? I'm a hands-on person, like I'm a visual learner. Like I want to be an electrician, like I have to get on top of it. I'm gonna give myself a chance to do it. I started getting into it and it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
I plan to work my like entire college. It is like very daunting, and I've thought like, oh, is college really worth it? But I know like in the long term it is, so that's why I'm still deciding to pursue it.
Being undocumented has just been, well, one, just always keeping an eye out or an ear out, I guess, for news of like raids happening, and just like making sure like, hey, it's happening here, like let's not go there, let's, you know, steer away from that area. Just making sure that like, you know, you never find yourself in like a questionable situation, because anything could just lead to you being deported, or I guess me being deported. And you know, I don't want that. It's kind of inconvenient to get an education from a country that you know nothing of.
While these voices came from California, they describe the challenges facing the United States once the pandemic subsides and educators start to evaluate the deep costs of the interrupted education caused by this historic health crisis.
I'm not big on vaccinations, but I think as the country gets a kind of handle on COVID, and our cases, of course, then I'll be comfortable. So maybe that can be a year and a half. It could be 2 years.
I find it remarkable that we have not kind of gone, you know, this is going to be somewhat of a lost year for so many kids, and what are our expectations going to be when we come back? And in terms of that kind of equity question, I feel like there's going to be a huge difference between students that had lots of responsibilities in their household that had nothing to do with school and students that were able to just be students.
Unfortunately, we're going to be looking at a group of children during this period of time that may be a stigma, you know, around them, you know, and they'll probably be calling them the COVID kids, you know, that were behind.
I was speaking to an expert at just how, you know, ages from like 12 to 18-year-olds are experiencing a lot of depression and mental health crisis because they don't get to see their friends. They don't get to do meaningful activities like sports, clubs, all of that.
They're gonna become more antisocial because they sort of like get so used to, you know, this isolating environment, right? Learn online on their own and then just be with their family, not really social anywhere. Then when you go outside, you'll be making sure you're social distancing. You know, like all of that. I mean, if it's going on, it's just gonna become like another normal thing.
I know it's like common like human behavior to be interacting with people on a daily basis, but to be deprived of that for just so long and then to finally like re-enter that. And I feel like people have become more introverted.
Not just the academics, but the thing I feel like nobody's talking about is like, what are the behaviors going to be like? How are they going to do when they're actually back where they can interact and ping off of each other? And I don't know, that would be an interesting fly on the wall documentary to do.
I could do the best around me and my family and my daughter, because unfortunately I can't protect the world. I can't tell the world what to do. I just don't see it getting any better.
I think with all of the doom and gloom going on, I have hope. I think my generation's more aware. I can see like future leaders and my friends, and it just gives me hope because I know I want to do the same, so yeah.